Welcome everyone to Spirit Coffee Talk. I'm Ginette Byro, and with me is Elyse Catherine and Lisa Richmond. We are the mediums at Avalon Spirit, and every Friday we connect and we talk about things to do with spirit, whether it be the energies, the astrology, spirit messages, cool topics to do with spirituality. Today we are talking about this really neat juncture point of consciousness, more like a juncture point of recognizing the narratives in our own minds and how we're changing them, how those really affect our reality, our perspective of reality as light workers specifically, and how this happens to just all fall into this wonderful timing of being in the eclipse gateway, which we're in right now, which really represents change, transformation, old ways letting go, new ways being born. We're right in that. So how perfect is it that all of this energy coming up and really asking us to question why we're thinking what we're thinking, and is that actually true to the reality we have? That's what we're going to talk about today. So welcome everyone.
Welcome.
That was quite the intro.
I know, right? I just thought it was just flowing out of me. I was like, I'm
You're
still
a
talking.
pro. You're a pro. You are.
Like,
So
hi,
funny.
welcome, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. We got coffee and stuff to talk about today.
Oh, it's so
I don't know
funny.
what to do with my hands.
My hands feel weird. Yes, that too. So how are we feeling? What have you guys been recognizing in like these narratives? Because we kind of talked a little bit about how we find that light workers right now are, and that's all of you watching. And there's so many ways that light workers present themselves in the world. So that's not just mediums, psychics, healers, like it's everyone who is working for a higher consciousness. But we noticed that, us included, a lot of light workers are feeling really like pushed to the brink, like pushed to a point where they would normally pull their resources from, their tools and stuff, are at this juncture point where they don't work anymore. Or it's like, I don't know what to say, is what I found myself saying lately, is like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to share. I don't know what to think, because we're at this whole new shift in consciousness and thought pattern and reality. So what have you ladies been noticing?
Well, I went off like hot topic before we pressed record. So I'll kind of like go with that a bit, because it's obviously what is a reoccurring thing for myself, the people that I've spoken with this week. And it's just a kind of a reoccurring thing in conversation. But how I can explain it the best is that I feel like there is a sense of like we're coming to this like birthing point or juncture point, or like where we're feeling this resistance. And it's really intensifying, because what's happening is that as we move forward, we can feel resistance. And it can feel like we're not moving forward anymore. Like, that resistance feel. But really what it is when you're about to be birthed, think about the actual birthing process. Right at the end, before that baby is birthed, there's like so much resistance. And it is like the pinnacle point of juncture and resistance and change and transformation, right? And so that's kind of where we're at with moving forward as a collective, individually, moving into this higher frequency. And it's absolutely happening. But when we feel this resistance, what it really is, in how I'm understanding it, is that we're actually still like we're birthing out, or we're breaking free of, or we're leaving behind, or moving through an old paradigm that was constricted of belief systems, programming, and understanding that no longer align or apply to the individual or the situation. Examples of this are things like programming beliefs of success, money, status, achievement, acceptability, worthiness, right? How we show up, the types of friends that we surround ourselves, social situations, like our judgments of self and others, if they no longer align. All of these things really do come from a deep level of programming and understanding that were given to us from our family, from our culture, society, schooling, XYZ, right? And in a way, I feel like when they're showing up so significantly now, it's almost like they're doing their part. They're playing their part in order for it to seem so extremely obvious that we have to break free of it because it doesn't feel right anymore. And it can be like, okay, well, if you work this hard and you achieve these grades and you get into this Ivy League and then you get this job and then you make this amount of money and then you're happy, right? That's a very stereotypical like example, but it can really be anything, right? Depending upon the culture, the programming that was given to you. Sometimes people can be raised in a big family and their programming is taught to them where you have to say yes, you have to go with it. Don't be the squeaky wheel because that slows everybody down. Don't use your voice. You have to kind of go with the crowd. Don't be an outlier. Don't have that strong opinion, especially as women, And so then all of a sudden people are like, I'm getting sick a lot. Why? Because I'm being told to sit down, rest, and use my actual voice. Right? Like there is so many examples and I'm using them that have come up. So anybody who's watching that, I'm using your example because it's come up so much. But I just feel like this is an opportunity that when it's right in your face and it's uncomfortable, it's because you're almost through. It's giving you this front and center opportunity to see what this old programming is that isn't yours at all. And if anything, it's causing the resistance for you to walk in to your authentic self and what is actually driving you, why you came here. What you came here to do and be is outside of that programming. So we are programmed big picture of like success, money, that status, right? That is a thing. But like, then you can see when it's not authentically aligning with you chasing the goal is when you're driven by all the shoulds. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. My worthiness isn't kicking up because I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. But then you find yourself really not doing it because it doesn't feel right. And then that hits our worthiness thing again. I'm lazy. I should be doing that, right? And then we get on this hamster wheel. So my guides are really driving this point for everybody at home to say that it's not because you're stuck. It's not, even when you are a bit stuck, even when that baby's a bit stuck, it gets out. Sometimes it's just real uncomfortable, but it gets out. And know that the stuckness is actually because you are right at that pinnacle of that least resistance, of breaking free of that programming. And it's right in your face right now. And guess what? You get to be the narrator of how you get through it. Notice your thoughts. Notice your thought pattern. Notice the things that are coming up to drive you and start really listening to this, maybe less of this and more of this and your physical reaction. Because you are so much further ahead, your body and your soul and your natural authentic being is going to have a louder voice than the old program thoughts. It's easier to switch. Okay. So anyway, there was a long-winded one.
That's okay.
I feel too on the flip side of that. And I saw this a lot, even in the last like handful of years pre-COVID and all of the things. There's this, especially when we talk about like, you're here for a purpose and your life's purpose. And what's my soul purpose? I know I ask people that, I get asked that a lot. Like, I'm just trying to figure out what my purpose is. And oftentimes especially when we're in maybe like the wellness or the spiritual world, identifying as a light worker, it's like, well, that means I have to have a soul job, or that means I have to be doing this passionate thing, or that means I have to be doing this or that, or I can't be part of the 9 to 5. I can't do this. I have to do that. That's old world. This is new world. And to say that there's no rule, right? You finding, if you work in a job
That's still a should. I
yeah,
should be in the light worker then. That's
exactly.
another
If you work
should.
in a job that's like you enjoy your days and you go to work and you do the things and it's a 3D job, whatever that means, and it's not pulling your life force out of you. It's not, you don't leave at the end of the day like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm out of there. Like, it's just, it pays the bills and it allows you to live your life and it allows you to spend time with your kids and travel and maybe you do some light work on the side, or you get to just like rest and enjoy your days, and that feels aligned for you, giver. Like, that is the alignment. There's no, because I think we, because of the way that society, capitalistic society, was set up, we were very much in this side of the shoulds. 9 to 5, do the thing, da 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 da, go to school, Ivy League, get a degree, blah 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, in the contrast of that, people are like, F that, I'm going over here and I want to do this and da da da. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to do this. Cool. If that aligns for you, great. But that's not for everybody. And that's not everybody's, that's not going to meet the need that your soul has. Your soul purpose isn't always how you make money and how you are successful and how you help people. It can also be showing up in the authentic way that feels aligned for you. That is how you help people. Because when people show up in their life in alignment, in a way that feels good, in a way that their heart expands and they bring joy to the world and they get to like live on this earth emitting this light from inside them that's not clouded by all the stuff and the shoulds and the things that don't align with them, that makes just as much change as being a medium or being a healer or working in mental health, or it's all of it. And it's letting go of either end of the spectrum. I'm not a fan of either end of the spectrum because that implies that we have to live in one or the other. And I don't even love the spectrum. Let's pop up to a different perspective, a different level spectrum where it's like, what feels good for me? Maybe I am an entrepreneur. And then maybe one day I'm like, you know what? This doesn't feel aligned anymore. I found this beautiful job. It's working with kids. That really feels good for me right now. I'm going to do that. Cool. I saw this one woman who used to be a teacher, such a noble career. It exhausted her. It drained her, especially working in the particular area that she did and in that system. And it was really, really challenging. She quit, works at Costco, living her best life. To me, that is just as soul aligned as whatever else we are being told we should do. So I think it's like, if you're that person that's like, oh my gosh, what's my soul purpose though? It's like, your soul purpose is whatever feels good for you, whatever feels aligned, whatever lights you up and brings you energy and allows you to experience joy and love and being present and being able to experience the wholeness of life. That is soul alignment, because we all have different soul agreements for why we're here. We all have different purposes. We all have different things that we were like, yeah, I'm going to learn this when I go to Earth School. And that can't look the same, because that would be super boring also. And it would not allow us to learn from each other and grow and shift and change. So it's like, what is that purpose for you? What are those things that are your shoulds that are keeping you stuck? And how do you want to feel? How do you want your life to look? If that's working at Starbucks and you love just making people listen, I love Starbucks. Makes me happy. Starbucks people make me so happy. You're bringing me joy. So
Especially when
thank
they
you.
put like smiley faces on your cup, or they write
Have
"Have a nice day." I'm like, I will have a great day now. Thank you.
I'm gonna enjoy this coffee and smile along the way as I'm drinking it. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, but I have to say, sorry, just real quick on that note, I like that you brought that up, because an example of that, just the other day in a reading, it came up that this one person, someone that they knew, so it was like a message for someone that they knew, not even the person in the reading, but Spirit came through really clearly to say, did you know that this such person is saintly in nature? And they actually came to Earth before their time. They were meant to come like 300 years from now. They decided to come early just to be present with compassion. That's it. They don't have a big soul purpose as we think. Soul purpose should be of like, I'm going to make this amount of money. I'm going to make this amount of change. I'm going to create this revolutionary thing. Their whole desire of being here is simply their presence of frequency. And the person in reference doesn't recognize that. They just simply are. They just are compassion. And Spirit said their eyes, specifically, when they look at someone and make eye contact, it has a frequency. that shifts something for the other person. This person has no idea, but their higher self was willing to come through and be like, we just came in early just to be present and to have a frequency. And like, that's literally what's happening for some people. And so I like that we're talking about this, because for some of you, your presence in a room is literally what you're here for. It doesn't mean you have to be the outgoing person in that room either. Your frequency and your presence on this planet is part of your purpose just by being alive. Right? Like, and I find that fantastic.
Well, that was the whole thing, is when I came forward, at least I hope I didn't come across
No,
like
no,
you
like
didn't.
I was
No,
like,
you didn't.
everybody move through it so that you can be a light worker and be this.
No.
It's
Those are the conversations that are coming up, because people are like, we're in this new 5D frequency. What am I doing? How am I showing up? And it's like, you're showing up in whatever way feels aligned for you.
That's what I mean. I feel like the whole thing right now that is coming into place is people coming face to face with the programming, the shoulds. The programming is the shoulds, is the individual's perception of what should or shouldn't be based upon the narrative in which they created their belief system on.
And that's where we were talking a few weeks ago. And I think, I don't remember if you said it on your podcast, Ginette, or maybe it was one of your cosmic consciousness circles, but the idea of like discerning where this is coming from for me is hearing people talk about, in this new 5D frequency, we do this and we do that and da-da-da. And it's like, some people are like, so do I quit my job then? And it's like, no, not if it doesn't feel aligned for you. It's like, I think in the spiritual world, we can hear either end of the extreme. And it's like, it comes back to let go of what other people are saying, whatever it feels aligned for you. My brain used to go to that all the time. If I'm working in a 3D job, I'm not showing up in my purpose. No, that's not true at all. It took me a long time to learn that.
There's such thing as 3D and 5D jobs. I think 3D and 5D are just a frequency.
But a lot of people talk about it that way. I hear it all the time.
People think it. Like, I think people think,
I agree though.
Yeah. Like, I think people think there is a differentiation.
People can be like very 5D as a security guard or a prison guard, and they can also be very 3D as a medium.
Totally. Yeah.
It's that it's exactly what you were saying. It's the societal beliefs, the shoulds, the perceptions that were put on literally everything to be like, this is higher than this, and this is lower, and this is da-da-da.
Judgment.
It's like, nay.
Yeah.
Judgment. It's the judgment piece, really. Because like we can either judge others, ourselves, or the situation based upon the level of acceptability in which, again, I feel that we were programmed.
Totally. You know, and I want to say this, so this 9 of Pentacles card keeps coming up.
I got that this morning too.
Yeah. So this keeps coming up regularly when I do like a collective pull, like in the morning. I do my daily card reads, but I also kind of do one for myself. And then I'll do any just on the collective. Like, I just get curious and nosy. So anyways, this one keeps coming out consistently. And 9 of Pentacles is really about recognizing individually that you have everything you need. Like you're saying, right? You have the 9 Pentacles. You've created the 9 Pentacles. You're willing to share some of your pentacles, some you're going to keep for yourself, but you're a self-made person with their own sense of knowledge, wisdom, resonance, and that is what matters. That is the point where you create any kind of change. That's where you decide, are you playing in 3D narratives? Are you playing in 5D narratives? Yeah. Do you like where you are? Do you not like where you are? You have 9 Pentacles. This is essentially the Empress card of the minor arcana. Right? This is a pre-Empress card. So this is just like a 3D life Empress, kind of is how I could say. So this keeps coming up so much. And I really think it's what we're talking about is like, we all actually carry these 9 of Pentacles, and we have the ability to choose the narrative we want and shift it and disagree with other main narratives of things, of shoulds, of predetermined judgments, or like benchmarks that should be attained. Because I know people that have attained, and even myself in some ways, like I reached certain benchmarks, which I thought or believed should then mean I'm happy, then mean I'm satisfied, then mean whatever. And I reached them and I realized, wow, okay, it's a little bit void. Or then I do something totally different, sidebar, and I feel like I reach that feeling of happiness, contentment, and they
Totally.
don't always sync. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And I like that we're talking about that. The journey is not linear. It's not designed as a general. It's very individual.
It is individual. We
Yeah.
work as a collective. We are all one. We all are all one. And that brings that compassion, that collective love and compassion. But we're here on an individual journey. We really are. So there can't be two things that make it work. It's just the reason why we think that is because in large organizations and larger groups, it's easier if everybody believes XYZ.
Yeah.
Right?
Agree.
And we're all driven by different things. And we all have different programmings. We all have worthiness things. That's where it all came from. Right? And chances are, if you're getting triggered by the worthiness thing, it's like, okay, who in your life is playing their part to be able to bring that forward for you? Right? Instead of turning your finger and blaming it on someone else, be like, oh, okay, well, this showed up again. This really triggered me back into this like worthiness. What part of myself needs that reassurance? And literally, like, I think like for myself and that part of myself, that one-on-one saying, hey, Elyse, remember X, like this isn't the one size fits all. Right. And I know you believed this for a really long time, but that's no longer something that you need to carry with you, because as cliche as it sounds, you're worthy of having, giving, receiving love unconditionally, abundantly, always, forever, whatever, like, all of that reaffirming things. But those are the thought patterns that make a difference, rather than if we get stuck in the thought pattern of, I'm not enough, I didn't do enough, I was lazy today, or I need to achieve, or, that achievement goal set that, that kind of like extroversion, and that's just giving me somebody else's programming. Might be, if you're not zen enough, if you don't meditate or pray enough, then you're not 5D enough for our group. When it's like, I like XYZ, right? And so exactly what you were saying, Elyse, it's like whatever the programming is that triggers that part of that not enoughness is really what you can come face to face with and say, hey, you absolutely are. Feel into it. You're having this human experience so that you can experience, so that you can feel, so that you can be in it. So feel into what it is, whether it's working at Costco and you have these friends you made and it checks off the boxes of that interaction and that schedule that works for you, so that allows your freedom on weekends, or whatever the heck it might be. You are the narrator. You're the author. You're the everything of your own experience. But we do come in with the programming so that we can learn what it is that actually aligns with us. Otherwise, we'd be like, I have no idea. I have no direction. Because there's always two sides to things. That's what everything is made of, a light and a dark, a positive or a negative, right? So if we have this deep programming or this deep understanding or this experience, and we simply have that so that it is that benchmark to let us know that that doesn't align. Bingo bango. Then it's like, it's that aha moment. It's like, I had to experience that. That person had to be in my life in order for me to step forward and say, that's not my path. That's not why I'm here. Right?
And there's a neat freedom in that too. Hey, in those moments when you're like that guy you were referencing, Elyse, that, you like stuff that he puts out and stuff, but then this moment where you're like, oh, I don't know about that. I find when I have those moments where, maybe I look up to what somebody does or resonate with something, but when they say something that doesn't resonate with me, when I can recognize, wait a minute, that's not my truth. And not in a way of defense, like, I don't believe that. Like, that's a defensive, like, push, but more in like, oh, interesting. I really don't resonate with that, but that's okay. When I have those moments, there's something about that like lifts me even more, because it feels like more freedom for my own soul when I'm willing to acknowledge what is a resonance for me and what isn't, and that it's all okay. Like, it's okay for me not to
Yes.
resonate with that. And it's okay for that person to resonate with what they're saying. Like, both are
Totally.
okay. And it's like this feeling of like all things can exist.
Yes.
Right? We
And
don't
they
have to
have
say
to.
everything is
have
through
to exist.
perception, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, if everything is through perception, everything can exist at once. It's like there's just, and that's where for me, when it's like, whenever somebody's saying like, there is a one thing, it is this or that, I'm like, I can't resonate with that, because that puts boundaries around the infiniteness of our existence. And I
Totally.
was having a conversation with a client about manifesting, and how we'll hear sometimes like, don't manifest on an eclipse, do this. And I'm like, when are there rules? Like, if this feels aligned for me, I'm just gonna do it. And
100%.
maybe who knows why? I don't know.
100%.
I'm not always gonna know, but like, I'm just gonna do what feels aligned. And as long as it's not in harm of others, then, and that usually, if it's harm of others, there's probably not an alignment factor in that. But
Exactly.
it just, I'm just gonna, if I'm gonna manifest on an eclipse, then I'm gonna, and that's okay. There's no rules.
You know what I think is interesting too is because as I'm listening to you say that, I'm like, yeah, but I have had times in my past where I have gone against what I thought to follow what I believed was the right thing, or what someone else said was the right thing. And I went against my guidance, my internal guidance. But then my next thought right after that was like, but how else would you know the difference between what feels right and what doesn't if you didn't experience going against it?
Exactly.
Right? So like then there's beauty in that too. And so
Always.
I think shame can often hold us back too from progressing forward and from feeling like we're worthy of the fullness of our existence, because, oh, I fumbled this, or I did this wrong, or I said something that now I don't believe in, but I did then, or whatever your story is. All of those things help to bring you to the perspective that you have now, where you can be peaceful with it. You're not defensive. You're not all agreeing. You're like, I'm just going to do me here, but you go do you. I don't really want to play in that pool, but I'm going to hang out over here. And there's peace.
Yeah.
There's something so valuable about that.
It comes back to that whole idea of like, there's no such thing really as failure, because even if something doesn't go your way, or you make it like, and I know that's been something that's been coming up for me, is I'm like, I made all these aligned decisions, and now they're feeling like they're kind of biting me in the ass a little bit. And now I'm having to make different decisions that I didn't think I was going to make, that are kind of confusing to my brain because my alignment has changed. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not what was happening a year ago, 2 years ago. Interesting. That's hard to rationalize. My brain is having a hard time rationalizing that. But when I tune into like what feels in alignment, it's like, yeah, actually redirecting, going in this other direction actually does feel really aligned. And then the brain shame spiral goes, well, why did you do that in the first place? Well, maybe you shouldn't have done this. Well, blah, 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 blah. And when it's like, you step back from it, it's like, well, actually, I learned a lot in this experience. It was hard, but I've learned a lot about future choices and what's going to feel good for us, and what's going to feel like what I need in my future and what I want for myself. And that's all shifting and changing now, and that's okay. And so it's like the to your point, the shame and the judgment and the like, all of the things that our brain that has picked up on from societal programming and the shoulds tries to dictate like what alignment is. And it's like, alignment is just what feels aligned. It doesn't have to be good or bad, right or wrong. It's like, what feels aligned.
I heard this really great analogy. I'm going to share it. I hope I don't butcher it too much. It isn't from me, so I'm going to give credit to whomever it came from, who I don't know, but it wasn't me. So if it was you, take credit down below.
Thank you.
So just as the same kind of idea of when we want to just like unpack, unload, whatever, at nighttime, we're done work, we're done, kids are in bed, whatever, and we sit down and want to watch a show. Okay. We have the ability now where we're not really like sitting and watching our 7 channels on cable, like the 80s, but we have all the streaming networks. We have all the ability to watch whatever the heck we want. Okay. So when we're in the evening time, we can be like, okay, take a look at like kind of like who we're with. Let's say we're like kind of by ourselves. We're at the end of the night. How do we want to feel? Right. So we have this innate ability to choose what to put on based on what's going to align with how we're feeling. So if I'm like chilling, I've had a big day, I'm not going to put on Unsolved Mysteries, because that, for me personally, that music is enough to send me off the deep end because it triggers all my stuff as a kid, right? And so I will put on like comedians getting coffee in cars or whatever with Jerry Seinfeld. I like that because it makes me giggle. It's not too stressful, and that's kind of a choice. So here's the thing, talking about how do we know with what aligns? We have an innate ability to choose based upon how we want to feel, what's going on around us, right? With something like that. But then when it comes to more of a like choosing perception or choosing like life choices or day-to-day events, it gets a little bit more difficult because we're incorporating, what's going on surrounding us, other people, narratives, programming, blah, blah, blah. So if you want to go into a situation, you're like, okay, I'm choosing a perception today that's going to guide me based upon me really wanting some like self-love to be able to like trust in myself to make this choice, this big choice, and I have to put my big girl pants on. I need a lot of courage, right? What do I need for that? Do I need to get on the phone and call somebody who I know is a part of the old programming because I'm used to that, because that's what makes me feel more comfortable and used to it, right? Probably not, because I'm going to hear exactly what I know I'm going to hear. Then I validate that I am not enough, and then I can't do this, and I'm just another voice that says this or this or this, so I'm not going to do it, right? It's being able to consciously be aware of the things that either resonate or not resonate in the frequency that we want, right? So if I'm looking for like something to just bring me into that kind of like self-love and I can do this, it's probably maybe listening to like really high vibration sound or a really good uplifting YouTube thing on the topic I'm thinking about. Or heck, you know what really does it for me is getting my hands in the dirt or going for a walk, playing with my kids. Like, who knows what it is, but you can, and only you can know the frequency in which you're seeking for perception, act, or doing versus anybody else. Just like you know exactly what TV show or movie is going to set you off or bring you into alignment with what you want. I want to laugh, watch a comedian. I want to feel absolutely terrified. I don't know why somebody would want to do that, but whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like it's taking such a simple example, but really that's how we can apply it.
Yeah.
Because like sitting and turning on the same show because our program is we have to watch the 6 o'clock news because we have to know what's going on with the world. Do you want it like, and then afterwards at 6:45 being like, that's how I felt at least. So I stopped watching the news. If somebody else that really aligns with them because they love knowing what's going on in that frequency, fair. That's their thing, but only they can know what you, but then at the same side, be conscious about what you're seeking. Are you seeking that based upon old programming and then puts you into that timeline? Or are you saying, hey, this no longer resonates with what I'm going for. I need to seek something else that resonates with what I'm going for. You know what I mean? The job, the daily activity, the like right down to the little things. Gee, I know you and I have talked about this, like what you want to wear or how you want to present yourself physically or what music you want to listen to, right? Like it makes a difference when you go inside and you choose what aligns with the frequency, because then that gives you friggin' practice too. That the bigger things, you can more easily make those alignment choices because you've gotten more practice on choosing and going within. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
Did that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
100%. And I think for me, that is why I harp so much on somatic work, because it's like for a lot of us, I know for me years ago, not even years ago, sometimes now too, when there's a lot of stress, a lot of things happening that impacts our physical bodies, that from a connection point into our bodies can be it can cut off the communication or not cut off, mute. It can make it harder to feel what feels good for me? Because our brain can get so loud and so, just overbearing with,
Totally.
with what it should do, everything that we've already talked about. And so if you're like, how do I do that? Well, hit me up. Happy to chat about somatics anytime, but it's like clearing out space so that you can feel what
Feel into it. Yeah.
and it's not, and sometimes it doesn't make sense, and it's also not like sexy spiritual work. It's like subtle and quiet and slow, and that drives people crazy, and I'm sorry for that, but it's unwinding all of the franticness that lives in the brain. Like, our cute little brains just want to keep us alive, that's about it, and like learn some stuff. It all lives in here. Our spirits live in our bodies, not in our brains. And so for me, even in some of the things that I'm going through now, as I've really opened up in my own connection with my body, I was having a conversation with my somatic person just before this, and I'm like, these experiences that are coming up again that I'm working through from a somatic, body-based, feel into spirit-based way, it's such a different experience. And it doesn't necessarily make life easier or make the hard things go away or the programming just go away. It just gives us a different way into it that can feel a bit more peaceful and feel a bit more aligned, right? Like everything you were just saying, Lisa, like what feels good today? Maybe going and sitting in a park feels good, even though this afternoon I was going to be super productive. That's okay. And like what we tend to find too is in our brains, like, well, what about this? And you got to do this and blah, blah, blah. But when we start to follow those nudges, then we're getting into an aligned path and an aligned flow that kind of starts to sort itself out and starts to like unravel all of the other things that you feel weren't going to work, or all of the things that your brain was like, well, here's a list of reasons why that's a terrible idea. Those things just start to shift or change or work themselves out, or you find new ways of dealing with them. Or like when we make decisions, like you were saying, Lisa, from this like expanded body grounded place, life changes, your experience changes, and it's simple, but it's not easy. And
Totally. It's subtle,
it's,
but not necessarily easy. Yeah.
yeah,
Because of those like long dated programmed perceptions, shoulds, ideas, you know?
So, again, bringing this back to what was mentioned in the beginning is the timing of this awareness is so, in one way I want to say, wow, it's crazy. At the other sense, I want to say, well, of course.
Obvious.
But
Yeah.
we had, like this year is a big change year, being that fourth year of the 4 years of 100 years worth of growth that we've been talking about, right? And then if you look in February, we had Saturn moving into Pisces, which was big karmic cycles coming to a close. Then we had Pluto moving into Aquarius, which is like hard stop, change, transformation, endings, beginnings. And now being in this eclipse, like right after, it's like 1, 2, 3, we're in this eclipse gateway of heightened, impactful, squeezing energies between the sun and the moon, the solar and the lunar eclipse, of endings and beginnings. And endings coming for the very point of beginnings right now. New beginnings. What do you want? How do you want to think? Like these are huge energetics working with us, putting a squeeze on it, but to make this happen faster. So what I'm getting with this is that any of the work that we do now in recognizing the personal narratives, going into where it needs to be cleared out and giving it space to be, excuse me, is really going to be humongously impactful for the rest of 2023. Like this is a huge, crucial change point time where we can really recognize what came up in February, what else came up in March, what did we learn about ourselves, what shifted, what changed. And now we have the opportunity to like almost give our stamp of approval or like review the contract or something, or like however you want to visualize it. Because in this window, we have this beautiful opportunity to really let go of stuff that doesn't apply anymore for the space for exactly what we want.
Yeah.
This beautiful divine timing. And we're in this window until May 5th. And we still have time.
Yeah. My guides are just reminding me, Ginette, you've talked so much about we have to keep asking for what we want again and again and again. And I know we've talked about this on Spirit Coffee Talk, but they're just saying like, this is why, because it's okay to then change what you want. It's okay. Maybe a month ago you were asking for one thing, and now, you know, Lisa, you were talking about like unpacking what success means to you. All of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm not asking for that as success anymore, because I've realized that's not for me. This is
Yeah.
what my idea of success is
There's
now. I'm
no
going to ask for
cheese
that.
down this road, because, you know, like for me, I can totally say a lot of the ideas that were presented within my personal programming, I'm like, okay, you know, I have come at this from so many different angles to try to be in this box, but it doesn't work for me. And really, I've done everything outside of the box that actually worked for me, but I'm not acknowledging any of that. I'm acknowledging the fact that inside that box and that outdated programming continually doesn't work, and there must be something wrong with me because of it. Like,
Totally.
yeah. What are the things that have worked? Outside the box stuff. The stuff that I haven't aligned with that old programming. You know what I mean? But we all have it.
We
And
do.
we all brought it in so that we have that reference point. Just like you said, G. Like, how many times am I going to go out and I'll be like, oh yeah, well, that box of Band-Aids stuck out to me to bring one for a reason, and I didn't, because I was like, why would I grab a box of Band-Aids when I'm just driving to the store, right? Well, because I'm gonna need it, you know, like just but that'll continue to happen, not because we don't listen or there's some, you know, like we did something wrong. It's so that we can continue to validate that we always have the right answers within us. It never goes away. It's never like, our guides are never going to be like, okay, that was the last time, Elyse. You didn't listen to yourself, so now you can't have what you came here for anymore. Yeah. No. Doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I love this. I think this is just so timely, beautiful message. Definitely divinely inspired. I really, really feel that through all of us. So I really hope this resonates with all of you watching. Thank you as always so much for joining us. Do subscribe, share, and this is really an important message. So if there are people in your world that you see are struggling, this may really help them to take that moment of pause to kind of review their own internal narrative and see what's going on.
Definitely.
So we will leave that with you all for today. Happy weekend, everyone. Happy Eclipse Gateway. And we'll be back again next week.